Most people don't fail because they're lazy. They fail because they followed the wrong advice. That's a bold statement, but if you stop and think about it, it starts to make uncomfortable sense. Look around. Millions of people are trying to improve their lives. They're reading books, watching videos, listening to podcasts, and taking courses. They're not sitting still. They're doing something. And yet, the majority stay exactly where they are, same income, same stress, same limitations. Why is that? Here's the real question no one really wants to ask. If success advice actually worked the way it's presented, wouldn't more people be successful? Because the truth is, most advice sounds right. It feels right. It even works well for some people. But when applied blindly, over time, it quietly leads people into a loop they don't even realize they're stuck in. Take one of the most common pieces of advice ever given. Work hard and you'll succeed. It sounds logical, it sounds fair, it sounds like something you can control. But here's what no one tells you. You can work hard for 10 years and still be in the same place if you're working on the wrong thing. Effort alone doesn't create wealth, it creates movement, and movement can feel like progress, even when it isn't. You see people working long hours, pushing themselves, grinding day after day. And from the outside, it looks admirable. But behind the scenes, they're stuck in a system where more effort doesn't always equal more reward. Now, let's look at another one. Follow your passion. This one feels even better. It's inspiring. It gives people hope. But passion without direction is one of the fastest ways to struggle financially. Because the world doesn't pay you for what you love, it pays you for the value you create for others. And those two things are not always the same, so people follow what they enjoy, without understanding how to position it, package it, or scale it. And then they wonder why it's not working. Then there's this one. Stay positive. Now, positivity has its place. Of course it does, but when positivity turns into avoidance, it becomes dangerous. Because ignoring reality doesn't change it. Pretending everything is fine doesn't fix what's broken. And yet, so many people are taught to just think positively rather than learn to think clearly. So they stay stuck, smiling through frustration, telling themselves it will all work out, without ever changing the strategy. And here's another big one. Save money to get rich. Now, saving is important. It builds discipline. It creates stability. But saving alone has never made anyone wealthy. Wealth comes from growth, from assets, from leverage. Saving keeps you safe, money for a rainy day. But safety and wealth are not the same thing, and this is where things start to shift. Because when you step back and look at all this advice together, a pattern begins to emerge. It's not that the advice is completely wrong, it's that it's incomplete. It focuses on effort, but ignores direction. It promotes comfort, but avoids risk. It encourages activity, but not necessarily progress. And over time, this creates something dangerous, a life that feels productive, but never truly moves forward, a cycle where you're always doing something, but never quite getting where you want to be. And the worst part, it's subtle, because you don't feel stuck at first. You feel like you're trying, you feel like you're improving, you feel like you're on the path. But years pass, and the results don't match the effort. That's when frustration sets in. That's when people start to question themselves. They think the problem is them. They think they're not disciplined enough, not smart enough, not lucky enough. But what if the real issue isn't you? What if the real issue is the advice you've been following? Because once you start to see that, everything changes. And that brings us to something most people don't like hearing, but need to. Because not all failure comes from bad advice. Some of it comes from something much simpler and much harder to admit. Let's be honest for a moment. Not everyone is stuck because of bad advice. Some people are stuck because they don't actually want to do the work. That's not a popular thing to say, but it's true. There's a difference between someone who is misled and someone who is avoiding effort altogether. And in today's world, it's easier than ever to fall into that trap. Because everything is designed to feel like progress without requiring real effort. You can watch success videos for hours. You can read books back to back. You can plan, think, research, and prepare. And at the end of the day, you've done nothing that actually moves your life forward. It feels productive, but it isn't. And this is where a dangerous mindset starts to form. The belief that success should be easier than it is, that there must be a shortcut, that someone, somewhere, has figured out a way to get results without putting in the work. So people start looking for it. The perfect strategy, the secret system, the one move that changes everything overnight. And in that search, they avoid the one thing that actually creates results: consistent, focused effort. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable. Some people don't just avoid effort. They actively look for ways to shift it onto others. They want someone else to do the hard part. They want the reward, without the responsibility. They want the outcome, without the process. And that mindset is one of the fastest ways to stay poor, because value doesn't come from avoiding work. It comes from solving problems. And solving problems requires effort, skill, and persistence. There's no way around that. You can't outsource your way to success. When you're starting out, you are the captain. The business is you. You can't build something meaningful if you're not willing to engage with the process. And yet, so many people try. They jump from idea to idea, hoping something will stick. They start things, but never finish them. They look for easy wins, instead of building something real. And over time, this creates a pattern. Nothing compounds, nothing grows, nothing sticks long enough to produce meaningful results. And then they blame the system. They blame the economy. They blame timing. But the truth is, they never gave anything enough time or effort to work. Now, this doesn't mean you have to work endlessly. It doesn't mean you have to burn yourself out. You don't have to flog yourself to death, but you do have to go all in. You have to be willing to do what most people won't. You have to be willing to focus when others are distracted. You have to be willing to stay consistent when others quit. Because success isn't built on intensity. It's built on consistency, and consistency requires discipline, not motivation, not inspiration. Discipline, doing the work when you don't feel like it. Showing up when it's not exciting. Continuing when there's no immediate reward. That's the part most people avoid, and that's why most people stay where they are, because they're waiting for it to feel easy, and it doesn't. It's hard, it's messy, and you will have to make sacrifices. If you don't, it will be your dream that ends up being the sacrifice. This is hard talk, but someone has to say it. But here's the shift. Once you accept that effort and sacrifice is part of the process, everything changes, because now instead of avoiding the work, you start directing it, and that's where real progress begins. So if the common advice is incomplete and avoiding effort keeps you stuck, what actually works? The answer isn't complicated, but it does require a different way of thinking. First, stop trying to do everything. One of the biggest mistakes people make is spreading themselves too thin. Too many ideas, too many projects, too many directions. It feels productive, but it kills progress, because progress comes from depth, not variety. So instead, do this, pick one thing, and focus on it, not for a week, not for a month, but long enough to actually get good at it. Because skill is what creates value, and value is what creates income. Second, get good at it before you try to scale. This is where most people get it backwards. They try to grow something before it works. They try to expand before they understand. They try to multiply, something that hasn't been proven, and that leads to frustration. So flip it, build something small, and make it work. Understand it, refine it, improve it, and only then think about scaling. Third, diversify at the top, not the bottom. This is a big one. People hear multiple income streams and think they need to start 5 things at once. That's a mistake, because 5 weak streams don't create wealth. They are just creating a distraction. No one can be good at 5 things all at once. Instead, build one strong stream first. Something that works, something that produces, and then use that stream to create other similar streams. That's how real diversification happens. Fourth, focus on leverage. This is where things start to shift. Because effort alone has limits. There are only so many hours in a day, but leverage changes that. Leverage means creating something once, and benefiting from it repeatedly. It could be a skill, a system, a piece of content, a product, something that continues to produce, even when you're not actively working on it. That's how progress accelerates. And finally, think long-term, not in weeks, not in months, in years, because the people who succeed aren't always the smartest. They're the ones who stay in the game long enough for their efforts to compound. They don't quit early. They don't jump ship every time something gets difficult. They stay focused. They stay consistent. And over time, that consistency creates momentum. So here's the real shift. Success isn't about finding better advice. It's about applying the right principles, consistently, over time. It's about focusing your effort, instead of scattering it. It's about doing the work, even when it's not exciting. Because in the end, the people who build something meaningful aren't the ones who know the most. They're the ones who stayed with something long enough to make it work. And that's the part no one can do for you. If this video resonated with you, give it a like and subscribe so that we can continue this amazing journey together.